We are live.
Good morning. Good morning, Glasgow. Hello, colleagues across the world, but particularly colleagues here in Asia. So good afternoon, good early evening to you. I hope we've got 2 hours of interest for you. And very much big welcome to this, the third virtual session on issues of water management as part of the Water Pavilion. On Tuesday, we heard a lot about a range of issues relating largely to agriculture, agricultural systems, and water management. Yesterday, we heard and learned more about water resilience and disaster. And today, we're going to learn about water cities and infrastructure. So my name is Simon Langan, and I am the Director of Digital Innovation and Water Data Science here at the International Water Management Institute, IMI, headquartered here in Sri Lanka. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the organizing partners, so IMI, the Asian Development Bank, and the UN Sri Lanka. And the outcomes we're looking for across these 3 sessions and going into today's session is to raise awareness, to learn something new, and to do something differently. I think now is the time for action, if it hasn't been for the last decade, but now is really the time for action. So to help do that, we have a broadly similar approach to the previous 2 days' interventions and sessions. We're going to have some opening remarks and reflection on the previous 2 days by our 3 partners, UN Sri Lanka, ADB, and IMI. And then as part of this introductory, we're going to follow by 2 interventions to give us an insight. So one from Sri Lanka and one from Indonesia. We'll then go into a second session, which will last for 55 minutes, and a bit of a deeper dive into some of the issues from the region. And then we'll finish with a 30-minute segment, a wrap-up, a forward look, and we'll conclude with the illustrations of what are the messages being. So I hope that's what everyone's expecting. So let me just introduce our 3 panelists for the first part of the introduction section. So first of all, we're going to hear from Ms. Hannah Singer Hamdi, who is the United Nations Resident Coordinator here in Sri Lanka. Hannah has been close to 3 years experience with the UN, having worked in development and humanitarian areas of intervention across the world. Secondly, we have Dr. Chen Chen, who's the country director for the Asian Development Bank. He has over 18 years of professional work experience in international development, and his PhD is in civil engineering. Excuse me. Our third high-level panelist is Dr. Mark Smith, my boss, the Director General of IMI, International Water Management Institute. Prior to being Director General, Mark was the DDG, and prior to that, he ran the water program for the IUCN. So can I turn to Hannah? Hannah, would you like to give us some opening remarks, please?
Thank you very much, Simon, and great to see you all again. And well, I have 30 years of experience actually in the UN, not 3, but which would make me much younger, Simon. I would highly appreciate that. So, but what a pleasure to be joining you again today. So let me start really by thanking, first of all, my colleagues from IMI and ADB for working alongside the UN in organizing this important discussion on water management needs in Asia Pacific as part of the Water Pavilion in the Blue Zone for COP26. Now, according to the World Cities Report 2020, urban areas are now home to 55% of the world's population. And that figure is expected to grow to 68% by 2050. At the same time, cities are a significant contributor to climate change. According to UN Habitat, for example, cities consume 78% of the world's energy and produce more than 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. yet they account for less than 2% of the Earth's surface. As urbanization and human settlements continue to expand, pressure upon scarce resources like water is increasing and is further exacerbated by climate change impacts. Urban settlements are where the impacts of climate change on water system are most keenly felt. These impacts include extreme in climate change from higher temperature, reduced precipitation and drought on one hand, and increasing rain and flooding events on the other. Therefore, without a more systematic approach to water management in our cities, the actions planned in the past would rapidly become insufficient. Now, these pressures are felt acutely in Sri Lanka as well as across Asia Pacific. Here in Sri Lanka, existing risks are being amplified and new threats are emerging. For example, based on the reports of the State of Sri Lanka Cities 2018 by UN Habitat, urban sprawl has increased the risk of flooding of important ecological wetlands. The Atidia wetland, an important flood retention area for the capital of Colombo, was reduced by 24% between 2014 and 2018. Now, what are currently, of course, I have a few other examples, but given the pressure in time, what we are currently doing to support the country in the face of these challenges, to name just a few, UN Habitat works on livelihood assessment of flood-prone low-income settlements in the city of Colombo and building capacities in urban environmental planning and management. UNOPS, for example, have supported the development of water supply schemes to provide drinking water to over 80,000, and also have been working on upgrading drainage networks for flood control, improved water retention and ground quality, improved community participation, and very extensive work also ongoing from UNDP, UNICEF, FAO, and WHO, who work broadly on issues related to managing water and climate change, such as water governance, access to and safe management of drinking water, and climate resilient integrated water management. But really, what is now? While these are good initiatives, however, to truly rise to these current and emerging threats, we need more global action in a way that advances a people-centered and inclusive approach to planning, building, and managing cities. We can do that by focusing on urban planning that adequately considers population growth and urbanization, technological advances, economic growth, and land use planning. We also need to identify critical areas of water scarcity and prioritize domestic supplies of water, which in turn will ensure everyone's human right to water and sanitation based on the SDG Goal 6. Finally, it is crucial to ensure accounting for urbanization footprint on water resources and plans to mitigate the impact of this urban sprawl. And to achieve this, it is imperative we work both on a local, regional, and global spheres to identify solutions to protect our water sources while also providing equal opportunities for the development of our people. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and I'm now pleased to hand it over back to Simon. Thank you.
Anna, thank you so much. I didn't really mean 3 years, I did mean 3 decades. Slip of the tongue. Anyway, Hannah, thank you for that. Thank you for setting the context, right from a global context through to the specific situation Sri Lanka is. So, Dr. Chen, could I come to you for some opening remarks, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon. And my fellow speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning or afternoon or evening to all of you. I'm honored to speak today on this side event for the COP26 Water Pavilion Asia Water Hub. In the last 2 weeks, the negotiation progress in Glasgow has continued to be the headline news and in the heart of many of us in today's event. To me, one of the convincing evidence about climate change is about a recent visit to China. On 20 July, I visited my parents in Zhengzhou and witnessed the heaviest rainfall of the city. From 4 to 5 p.m. of the afternoon of 20 July, the rainfall in 1 hour reached 201 millimeter. If the number is not impressive enough, I hope this picture can do better. Let me share my screen here now. Sorry, just allow me a second. So, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
At a first sight, one may wonder whether or not the yellow belt area in this photo is a river. But you will be as shocked as me when you recognize this is the entrance of an urban expressway tunnel with hundreds of cars under the water. In the torrential rain, the congested tunnel couldn't allow any car inside to maneuver out. After the flood, intensive discussions happened on the resilience of urban infrastructure and the readiness of early warning systems against the extreme weathers related to climate change. According to the series of climate change, such kind of extreme weathers will only be more and more frequent. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka is no exception to the impact of climate change. Many literatures consider Sri Lanka as one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. It's prone to floods, landslides, droughts, and salinity intrusion. And these kinds of nature disasters are likely to become more severe due to climate change. The effects of climate change may worsen the water scarcity, and the spatial inequality in water availability. As you saw in this photo, climate change can be more disastrous in cities. To address the impacts, we need to proactively plan and implement actions to strengthen urban climate resilience. In session 2 of today's event, my colleague Akira will share ADB's experience from a recently approved loan for integrated urban flood management for Chennai Kosa Salaya Basin in India. The project will support an integrated model for climate change adaptation and disaster resilience in Chennai. I hope this innovative model can also trigger more good ideas for the cities in Sri Lanka searching for integrated urban planning. In a milestone year like 2021, ADB also renewed its commitment to respond to climate change. Last month, ADB announced it's elevating its ambition to deliver climate financing to its developing member countries to 100 billion from 2019 to 2030, from an earlier target of 80 billion in its strategy 2030. Earlier this year, at the first Vulnerable 20 Climate Vulnerables Finance Summit, where Sri Lanka is also a member country, ADB President Masa announced that ADB will achieve full alignment of its sovereign operations by 2023 and its non-sovereign operations by 2025. ADB also plans to scale up investments in adaptation and resilience, resulting in cumulative financing of 9 billion in 2019 to 2024. This means 150% of the current level. One recent development is 2 years ago on Tuesday in Glasgow, where ADB and the government of UK jointly launched the Urban Resilience Trust Fund with a contribution of UK of around 100 million. We are keen to bring this new facility to Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, we are very much encouraged by the recent commitment by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. This commitment means a lot to the future development model of cities in Sri Lanka. When we actually conducted consultations for the new country partnership strategy for 2023 to 2027, climate change is always highlighted as a main challenge, including my meeting with Secretary Priyanta Vikrama. When we met with Dr. Anil Jasinga, Secretary for Environment, he pointed out that climate resilience recovery and development is also the direction to be pursued by the government. Yesterday, I joined the coordination meeting by the Water Board and learned a comprehensive plan for water supply and sanitation towards 2030, where climate change is also to be addressed right from the planning stage. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, ADB has been a partner with with Sri Lanka's urban and water sectors. We have a sizable portfolio and pipeline in this space. We are committed to join hands with the government, development partners, private sector, civil society, and many others to continue the journey and to overcome the challenges of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of my speech, allow me to quote ADB President Massa's remarks. He said, "The battle against the climate change will be won or lost in Asia and the Pacific. Cities and infrastructure will be the key players in such a battle. Such a battle we must win. Let's work together." Istuti, Nandri, and thank you.
Dr. Chen, thank you very much for that insightful opening remarks. Without further ado, let me pass it over to Dr. Mark Smith, DG of the International Water Management Institute, who's in Glasgow. Mark, please.
Thank you so much, Simon. Indeed, good morning from, it's quite an early morning here. Good morning from Glasgow, or just near Glasgow, actually, where I am. So, yeah, I would like also to start by thanking again our partners and co-organizers for this Asia-Pacific hub at the Water Pavilion here at COP26, the UN in Sri Lanka and the Asian Development Bank. Today, in today's session, we'll be covering another critically important topic building on the previous 2 days in relation to water security and in relation to climate resilience in the Asia Pacific. As we've heard already, more than half of people in Asia live in cities, and water infrastructure of one form or another is important to everyone, no matter where you live. And the challenge of ensuring that people in cities and beyond have the infrastructure that they need, this only grows under climate change. With the intensity and frequency of drought and floods and extreme events and changing monsoons, changing seasons of monsoons, glacier melt and sea level rise, all critical challenges in the Asia Pacific region that will have to be addressed going forward, just as Dr. Chen has so dramatically illustrated with his experience from his home in China. There are critical issues to be addressed. There are critical opportunities to be seized in relation, for example, to, of course, access to drinking water and sanitation, and therefore people's health, disaster risk reduction, and for example, flood management, as we've seen already today, water storage, wastewater reuse, source protection for water supplies into cities, so connecting cities to their basins and the resilience that can be built through doing that. And in so doing, incorporating natural infrastructure into infrastructure portfolios for water supply and storage and filtration, and understanding how best to combine those with built infrastructure for water resilience under climate change. So the portfolios of infrastructure needed to meet these multiple needs will need themselves to be robust across multiple possible futures, across multiple possible climate scenarios. And also they have to be flexible. They have to be flexible so that we as societies can respond to unexpected extremes and surprises under climate change. And perhaps that's no more true than in cities. We have to be able to plan and invest, therefore, under higher uncertainty in future and growing uncertainty and unknowns. For the infrastructure that we're talking about in cities and water infrastructure more generally, has a lifetime of decades. So we have to plan for infrastructure that's going to face unfolding water risks that we don't understand at this point in time, that we can't quantify at this point in time. And that's a new challenge for planning and investment. And meeting those investment challenges must come together with governance and institutions that localize resilience, as Nita Pokral from the ADB said to us on Tuesday. And that needs to be supported by data and information that leverages the new possibilities brought by digitalization to aid decision-making under these challenging water regimes, and our responsiveness and our ability to plan and invest across the scales that we need to consider, from very local scales through to cities, through to regions and basins. So we have a really excellent program today, exploring these challenges across Sri Lanka, India, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Maldives as well. So my congratulations to the organizing team for pulling together such an excellent contribution to the broader program of the Water Pavilion here at COP26. And this will, I'm sure, build on the great sessions that have been held over the last 2 days covering water and agriculture and water resilience and disaster risk. This is a time for action, as Simon, I think you said at the outset, and it's a time for considering how we change systems and how we change systems radically. That urgency is very apparent here on the ground in Glasgow, and I'm sure that our sessions at the Asia Pacific Water Hub are going to help us focus our minds on how best to do that. Simon, back to you, and enjoy your session, everybody.
Mark, thank you very much. Hannah and Chen, thank you all very much for giving us that nice context. We're now going to have two, and I hope very quick interventions just to give us an insight. And first of all, from Dr. Priyath Wickrama, and he is appointed as Secretary to Ministry of Urban Development, Water Supply and Housing Facilities in November 2019, and currently overlooking the Ministry of Water Supply since August 2020. He's responsible for providing planning of safe drinking water supply and improving conditions of water resources throughout the nation using a sustainable approach. So Dr. Priyath, if I could pass it to you, and I'm grateful if you can keep it 5-7 minutes would be fantastic. Thank you. Priyath, you're on mute. Dr. Priyath, we've still got a problem. We're not hearing you at all.
Now it's fine.
Now it's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everyone. Friends, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here today for COP 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, as it is an opportunity for us to work together to enable and encourage countries affected by climate change and to protect as well as restore ecosystems to build defenses, put warning systems in places, and make infrastructure more resilient to climate change. This will minimize disruptions to management of essential services such as water supply, wastewater management, as well as loss of homes, livelihoods, and lives in cities and rural villages. The event will be a turning point to highlight the importance of building resilient water, sanitation, wastewater services, with particular emphasis on the most vulnerable and marginalized communities. Resilient water services will also help people build resilience to climate change impacts and reduce their overall vulnerability. Sri Lanka is recognized as one of the mostly suffered countries, as mentioned by everyone, from the climate change adverse effect. In Sri Lanka, the climate change is identified as aggravating extreme flood and drought scenarios and keeping the total rainfall without much change of the total annual rainfall. Therefore, Sri Lanka has already prepared our strategic framework for the water, sanitation, and wastewater services under the Water for All vision embedded within the national policy framework, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor. We have also explored the key role of utilities in managing drinking water supply, including surveillance of wastewater and sanitation to improve water quality, and how the fragmentation of water sector can overcome through climate action. The country has already witnessed the impacts of rapid and unmanageable changes in water quality, as well as water security in both groundwater and surface water resources as a direct impact of climate change. Additional finances and investment have been identified to upgrade the existing water supply treatment systems to meet the extreme water quality events as a result of climate change. These extreme climate events have also created highly negative effects to drinking water supply sector because of prolonged droughts as well as frequent flooding. Water scarcity due to these prolonged droughts increasingly occurs due to extreme weather events attributed to global climate change. Because of rising temperature and increasing evaporation from the soil and the other surfaces, and by transpiration from plants as a result of climate change, water for human use and other requirement is likely to increase. According to the country's weather and climate information, number of severe rainfall events in a year has increased considerably, which is a clear result of climate change. This increase in turn has impacted the effectiveness of catchments and watersheds due to the low percolation as well as soil erosion. It is becoming necessary to introduce climatic adaptation that results in increasing resilience to adverse impacts of climate variability. It is also important to identify activities for protecting freshwater sources in view of the types of climate change impacts. Land restoration, revegetation, including protection of forest, wetlands, and grasslands, rank high in terms of climate benefits. Sri Lanka recently restricted imports of chemical fertilizer, pesticides, and weedicides due to public health concerns. Water contamination, soil degradation, and biodiversity impacts, which will be a positive impact to be more resilient to climate change. Sri Lanka has initiated actions to use groundwater as an alternative source of water during droughts aggravated by climate change effects. Plans are underway to enhance groundwater recharge as a practical measure to augment the availability of fresh water and to enhance climate change adaptation. This measure, managed aquifer recharge, involves building infrastructure and modifying the landscape to intentionally enhance groundwater recharge. We have also identified domestic rainwater harvesting, storing, and recharge using rooftops and other available surface as an important solution to the water scarcity under climatic change impacts, as rainwater is one of the purest forms of natural water available. This could be considered as an effective water management strategy for adaptation to the droughts. This will be extended for rainwater harvesting for infiltration, in which rainwater uptake in soil is increased through the soil surface, rooting system, and groundwater. We are hopeful that this technology will play an important role in climate change adaptation due to increasing unpredictable weather patterns. The Ministry of Water Supply has embarked on water reclamation as a tool focusing on the increasing concerns to safeguard the deteriorating environment, support the ecosystem development, sustain the ambient water quality, and improve the quality of life. Water reclamation and reuse will be used as a tool to overcome the effects of climate change, as well as enhance the security, sustainability, resilience, effective use of our water resources, especially when considered at the watershed or basin scale. Reclaimed water will be reused for beneficial purposes instead of potable water, depending on the level of treatment fit for the purpose, such as industrial process, agriculture and irrigation, construction processes, groundwater replenishment, recreational use, and environmental restoration, and even for toilet flushing where applicable. Policies and strategies are being formulated to ensure compulsory use of reclaimed water in industries, institutions, and commercial entities. Treated waste sludge from domestic and industrial wastewater septage treatment plants, as well as from water treatment plant waste, will be used as a resource in many applications. We will also address the high potential for application of reclaimed water using the 3 R's principle: reduce, reuse, and recycle for the local economic development. We have also initiated and successfully implemented the water safety plans in all urban and rural water supply schemes, which provide a comprehensive risk assessment and risk management approach that enable utilities to consider the hazards at every steps of the water supply chain, from catchment to the consumer, in order to provide greater consideration to the impacts of climate change and variability at each steps of the water supply system, including a greater focus on water quality as opposed to just quality. We are now upgrading water safety plans to climate resilient water safety and security plans. The major issue related to water sharing is the allocation among different water users sectors, especially during droughts, which will be aggravated with the impact of climate change. To address the water sharing and other issues, and guided by the principles of integrated water resources management, a high-powered committee appointed by the cabinet has already developed policies and trust areas for catchment protection, watershed management, and integrated water resource management. These policies and strategies will be incorporated to the national policy framework and implemented shortly. National policies and strategies have prioritized the need to develop additional water resources and storage reservoirs in line with IWRM principles to be resilient to climate change, and some of these storage reservoirs will be dedicated
Dr.
for
Priyas,
drinking water supply. Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry, Dr. Priyas, we're going to have to move on. It's in fairness to our other speakers. I'm very sorry, but the time has run out. So could you just make a concluding remark, please?
Finally, let us synergize. Yeah, I'm finishing. Finally, let us synergize on outcome this COP event to highlight the importance of freshwater-related mitigation measures in water systems such as wetlands and other inland water ecosystem, forests, croplands, rangeland, etc., as well as mitigation within the water, wastewater, sanitation, hygiene sector, and cities infrastructure to be better adapt to climate change impact. Thank you. I thought I was given 10 minutes before. That's fine. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, my apologies as well. We've just got a packed schedule today, which is very exciting. So for our concluding half an hour, of this segment, I'd like to invite Mrs. Fegi Nuhabani, sorry, I've got terrible pronunciation, to share. And Mrs. Fegi is Deputy Director of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change Adaptation, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries from the Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Fegi has held positions as Deputy Director Assistant for Climate Change Adaptation and Deputy Director for Marine Heritage. She holds a Master's in Environmental Infrastructure Planning from the University of Groningen. And Fegi, could I ask you, please, to share with us your insights and give us a different geography and different perspectives? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Good morning for you all in Glasgow, and good afternoon for all fellows in Asia. Am I clear, Simon?
Absolutely, absolutely
okay.
Fine.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you for having me in this event. It's an honor for me to be invited to share some insight and knowledge that we learn from our challenges, our experience, and our lesson learned from Indonesia case. Let me share my screen. Okay. Today, I would like to share about Building with Nature Indonesia program. This is a collaboration between 4 parties, actually. The Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the Ministry of Public Works and Settlement, EcoShape, and also Wetlands International. So this is bilateral from Indonesia and the Netherlands. Okay, let's see about Indonesia. This is an Indonesian map. You can see this is the abrasion and the sedimentation. So the red color is the abrasion, and the yellow one is the sedimentation. You can see that the rate of abrasion is higher than the sedimentation. So we lost a lot of lands. And that's a challenge for us since most of our big cities located on the coastal area. You can see Jakarta, our capital, is also located in coastal area. And let me zoom in Java Island. This is Java Island. You can see the rate of abrasion here is very, very high. The bigger the bullets means that the rate of abrasion is higher. So let's zoom in again to the north coast of Java, because north coast of Java is our main economic corridor. So the rate of mobilization for economy is very high there, but also the pressure is very high. So we have two challenges there in North Coast of Java. First is about the disaster, including the climate change related disaster. So the sea level rise is about 6 millimeters per year, but we also have land subsidence. It's more 1 to 10 centimeters per year, but in some places, like in North Coast, North Jakarta here, it reached more than 20 centimeters per year because of the utilization of groundwater and everything. And also there's a lot of tall buildings here. So it's dynamics. And the second challenge is about the land use, because there's always some trade-offs that to be made between the economic and also the ecology. Which one is more important? I think that's a classic problem for all countries. And then let me bring you to the Building with Nature program. The pilot site is in Demak. It's a regency next to Semarang cities. Semarang is the capital city of Central Java province. Is among our one of the biggest port harbor in Indonesia. So it's very busy. Semarang is very busy, and Demak is located next to Semarang. See, long this last 30 years, Demak has lost a lot of lands. You know, previously it used mostly for aquaculture. We have shrimp ponds there, and it's very, very in big scale. But now it lost a lot of lands. It's about 20 kilometers long, and the land, the water take place about 6 kilometers to the land. So it's big. So without any intervention, you can see the top picture. Without intervention, that we will lose that land. And this is the second picture. The below one is what we dream of Demak in 30 years. It's a long term. What will we do? Let me see. Okay. The strategy that we propose in Demak is about circular economy. How to create a mangrove-based economy through building with nature. So we plan mangrove green belt to provide coastal safety and enabling economy to prosper. And a prosperous local economy enables maintenance of mangrove green belt. So it's a circular one. It's a blue economy. And how to implement the strategy? We have several activities, including the building of semi-permeable structures, what we call with hybrid engineering, the one that mimics the root of the mangroves in holding sedimentations. And also we have coastal mangrove rehabilitations in the land behind the structure. We have the aquaculture revitalization, because all the shrimp pond is in idle status right now. So we want to revitalize the aquaculture. And we also implement mixed mangrove aquaculture. So mix the mangrove with the aquaculture ponds. So yeah, especially around the riverine area. And this hard structure measures also complemented by the biorights mechanism. This is the kind of community empowerment. So we ask the community to be the actor and implement the activities by themselves. And we also have the coastal field school, so where the local community share the knowledge among them. We have alternative livelihoods, including tourism, ecotourism, and etc. And we also have training, studies, and researchers in the project.
My apologies, but could you wrap up in about a minute? Is that
Yep.
possible?
So
Please,
this is some of the picture. Yeah, this is some of the pictures of the activities there. And you see, this is one, the sedimentation that is built behind the structures. And let me also, this is the social cost benefit analysis that is still on progress. And I say about research, and we also have a research right now, is study about the Momako project, is muscle as mangrove facilitator for coastal defense. So the coastal, so we are using the structure not only for coastal defense, but also to give another income, alternative income for the community. And this is in line with our policy in the ministry, is the coastal restoration, how to restore degraded coastal ecosystem and provide balanced ecological and economic value. So this is how to see it. So if you have a bad mangrove condition, you have to build the structure, sediment trap structure, and then planting the mangroves. But if the mangrove is in good condition, then it's directly goes to protection. You have a lot of mechanism in protection there. And also here, if after you planting the mangroves, you can also go to ecotourism or protect the conservation, protect the mangrove. So this is an options, but this is the scheme that we built here in protecting our coastal area. And also there's a community empowerment there, and I will show you some pictures to wrap up. This is the example of the sediment traps that we built from the last 5 years. And the planting, the ecotourism, the nursery. This is a batik from the mangroves. The ink is from mangroves. So let me bring you to my last slide. It's about lesson learned. There are 6 enablers for scaling up. If you want to scaling up the program, we need to be proactive and early stakeholder engagement, and we need to exploiting the broad range of benefits. So not only single benefit, but multi benefits. And we also need to use multi-financing stream, use natural dynamics to deal with future uncertainties, and last but not least is political willingness and also institutional collaboration. So this is should be recognized before the project begins.
great.
Okay, and I provide you some links. If you want to share my slides, then you can click and to see more about the programs. Thank you. And back to you, Simon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And really, I do my sincere apologies to Priyas and Fegi. We just wanted to hear so many voices, and everybody gets so enthusiastic. So I really do apologize to you both for cutting into your talks, but we do appreciate you joining us. So thank you, colleagues. Okay, so now we're going into the second element of today's session, and I'm going to pass over to Laxman. Laxman, sorry, you're going to have to squeeze your participants. Participants, I would ask you to try and keep to 7 minutes if at all possible. But Laxman, let me pass it to you. Thank you very much. Laxman, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Yeah, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope that we have how many minutes we have?
About
anyway,
55.
So,
55.
Yeah, 55 minutes. Okay. So let's move into this session 2 on cities and infrastructure forum. The session 2 is needs and solutions, building resilience at the local level, tools, funds, and best practices. What we are going to do today is basically to listen some of the best practices in the different countries. So let me quickly go into because of the time constraints, quickly go into we have 5 speakers. Probably if we get enough time that we may be able to presentations if time permits. So let's, without going to the greater, the introduction of each and every presenter or the speaker, I will straight away go to the first speaker, Dr. Vasantha Ilangasinghe. She is the Additional General Manager, Policy and Planning from the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, who has worked more than 34 years in the Water Board, National Water Supply and Drainage Board, which is the primary water supply institution in Sri Lanka, and also have quite a lot of experience in project management, scaling the large-scale water and sanitation projects, and also publications in the area of water and sanitation. So, Dr. Vasantha Ilangasinghe.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira. I hope you can hear me. And the time is 7 minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah, you have 7 minutes. If you can squeeze into 7 minutes, that would be really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Vasantha Ilangasinghe from Ministry of Water Supply. So I will, can you share my? Sorry. So I will go through my presentation. Country profile, climate change and its effects, Paris Agreement, Sri Lanka NDCs, some few case studies, and so Sri Lanka is a country with about 21 million population, and we have so many water sources in the country. As you can see in the map, all over the country we have many rivers and lakes and so on. 21 million population, and average rainfall is about 2000 millimeters per year. So the climate is tropical with monsoon rains, and topography is flat with central hills. So there are 4 major climatic zones: wet zone, intermediate zone, dry zone, and semi-arid zone. And Sri Lanka has a very important ancient water culture, rich with people participation and rich items. Here you can see the ancient water culture items. So if we talk about the climate change and its effects, climate change in Sri Lankan context, is it real? So from these graphs, you can see the temperature rise during the last 100 years is about 0.8 degrees centigrade. And the rainfall has decreased about 7% from the last 100 years. And if we compare the climate change in South Asia, I have compared here with India, both the countries shows a gradual increase in the temperature and a decrease in the rainfall, and increase in the extreme events, floods and droughts. So here, this slide shows the public perceptions of the climate change. Two important points they are raising. I will tell. Mr. Samaneris is telling that if this climate change goes on without any interference from the governments, not only the rural people like us have to die, maybe the townsfolk also will have to face problems, because we are the people who are producing the food. And this lady says, if the climate change has not been stopped, the money which are to be used for development will have to be used to address the adverse effects of the climate change. So thinking about these climate changes, the world bodies has, as you all know, the Paris Climate Agreement as well as Sustainable Development Goals has been established And Sri Lanka has its nationally determined contributions in 6 sectors: energy, transport, agriculture, industrial and forestry sector, and waste management. So Water Board also has planned for drinking water availability to the country. Presently, only about 40% of the country's population are covered by the Water Board pipe-borne water supply. However, there are about 53% pipe-borne water supply with other organizations. And Water Board has prepared our Water for All program, which has a ambitious program for increasing this coverage to 79% in 2025 by spending about $5,000 million. So similarly, for sanitation also, we have prepared a master plan, which is expecting to increase the 2% pipe sanitation coverage to 4.4% in 2030. However, the safe sanitation in the country is about 90% by using the on-site sanitation practices. So we intend to do fecal sludge management arrangements, decentralized wastewater treatment, and centralized wastewater treatment facilities in order to achieve these targets we are planning. So I will show you some case studies now regarding how the Sri Lanka is affected by the climate change. The first one is the Aranayaka landslide, which happened in May 2016. The Aranayaka is located in the central hills of the country. And due to this damage, it was a huge landslide happened in the hills. 92 people died, and about 3,148 families with 5,000 women and 789 children had to be evacuated. So due to this landslide, not only the Sri Lanka, neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar also were affected. So there you can see the rainfall, a rainfall of 355 millimeters were received within a 24-hour period. Therefore, due to some improper land use practices, first landslide happened, and then followed by 2 more landslides in the next day. And Water Board also had to face a lot of difficulties in continuing the water supply. And then case 2, I would like to talk about the Kalani River, which is the 4th largest river in the country, and it goes through the Western province, where the main city Colombo and the suburbs are provided with drinking water using Kalani River as the water intake. And you can see during the rain season, the river flow is very highly turbid. You can see during the rainy season, the average nitrate load as well as the turbidity are very high. And flooding causes severe damages to the pipe systems and operations of the water intakes. And also, it's very difficult for us to do the water treatment process in the regular manner during this flood period. So this is
Dr. Eliasinger, you have only 1 minute if you can wind up.
Okay. So I will just go to my last slide. So these are the steps we are taking for attending this climate change. For 4 areas: storage, business efficiency, integrated water resource management, and by obliging and being in line with the conventions and protocols, Paris Agreement, Sustainable Development Goals, and the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, the national policy of the government. And under storage, we are planning to have reservoirs across major rivers to overcome flash floods and droughts, and manage the aquifer recharge through rainwater and floodwater. Under business efficiency, we would like to increase the water availability by demand management, reducing non-revenue water, and contributing to this thing from renewable energy and energy efficiency greenhouse gas emissions, and integrated water management, catchment management, land use planning, water safety and security plans, rainwater harvesting, and water reclamation. Finally, I would like to say that beyond the traditional methods, we have to think about new dimensions for climate change adaptations, like use of data, information-based predictions and decision-making. And communication is very important to speedily disseminate the information, like mobile phones, social media platforms like that. And then new technology, globally, the atmospheric water harvesting is being researched now, and wastewater reclamation, few countries are using wastewater as drinking water now, and then use the digital platforms, IT revolution, to maximize the available resources. And with these things, Sri Lanka also explore new dimensions towards access to safe drinking water and sanitation, and contribute to the improvement of climate adaptations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ilangasinghe. Sorry for us to cut short the presentation. Let's move into quickly to next presenter, Mr. Akira Mastunga, Senior Urban Development Specialist, Asia Development Bank. Mr. Mastunga has been in the sector for 25 years in the development work, and also worked in a number of universities as associate professor at the Hitotsubashi University in Japan. So it's over to you, Akira.
Okay, thank you very much, Lakshman. And thank you for great remarks and the presentation from speakers. And today I'm going to share our new project in Chennai, that is the integrated urban flood management for the Chennai Kosasalaya River Basin. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. ADB just approved the loan in September, and our project area is here, the north part of the Chennai, and area size is 120 square kilometers, and 1/3 of the greater Chennai. And this area was newly added to the jurisdiction of Greater Chennai corporations 10 years ago. Chennai is facing two challenges. One is rapid urbanizations, and water retention capacity is reduced. And the second is increasing climate change risks. The city is ranked the most vulnerable to climate change among large Indian cities. And actually, since last weekend, Chennai has experienced a very heavy rains and flood, and people were evacuating, and so many socio-economic damage there. And such flood is now becoming more frequent and severe these years. So given these challenges and having global lessons, we come up with a transformative approach. Our model is based upon integrated urban flood management, including structural and non-structural measures. Structural measures include climate-resilient stormwater drains to cope with higher rainfall event under RCP 8.5 scenario. And we also construct a catch pit with groundwater recharge structure alongside the roadside drains. Because Chennai is well known not only for flood, but also for drought. And non-structural measures aim to improve flood preparedness and enhance operation and maintenance capacities. Plus, we will also process the grant for nature-based solutions to be funded by Jeff for improving flood retention capacity via water body rejuvenations. And also COVID-19 response to be funded by a Japanese grant through integrated management of pandemic and flood in low-income communities. In addition to this flood management model, we also adopt integrated planning to transform Chennai into more livable cities by linking flood hazard zoning to land use planning to keep people safe from the flood, also gender component, and also we will enhance municipal resource mobilizations. Especially this project area is newly developed and poised to increase the benefit from the growth and capture the increased land value through improved stormwater drainage. So increase of their revenue through increased property tax can in turn provide more sustainable and quality municipal services to the citizens. We are also, design to promote replications of this model to other cities. So what is our project? So we have structure and non-structure measures. And structural measures include stormwater drainage with infiltration pit, and also primary channels, pumping stations, and gender-responsive and socially inclusive disaster relief camps. And we also have a non-structural measures, including urban flood preparedness enhancement by integrating flood zoning with spatial plan, also flood resilience index. This flood resilience index is a baseline to identify the flood risk by measuring city performance with several parameters to identify the weakness and also the target intervention required. And we also support Flood Citizen Observatory. This is a software platform to obtain real-time voluntary information from citizens. So this approach, FCO, has a lot of advantages, including this is actually citizen participatory approach and cost-effective to get more data from larger areas. And also we can, with these data, we can update the flood risk map. And we also include the measures for sustaining operational maintenance of stormwater drainage systems. This slide is a snapshot for the co-financing grants that we are now processing. And one is a global environmental facilities for nature-based solutions in Kadapakam Lake. We will enhance flood retention capacity, restore biodiversity and ecosystem services, and provide recreational benefit to the citizens. And also, we are now processing grant from JFPL, Japanese grant. We find that urban low-income communities are increasingly vulnerable to multiple crises from pandemic and flood disaster. So we will support WASH and IPC at 65 schools and 17 community health centers. And we also support established mobile disease surveillance systems, including 8 mobile medical units and also 4 mobile water quality labs. So we try to capture real-time picture of geographic and demographic trend in local transmission of COVID-19. This is the last slide. We are also very proactive to disseminate our design and also knowledge to other cities, because there are so many other cities in South Asia and across the world which are suffering from the flood and also need the integrated urban planning approach. So we are very happy to disseminate this program model through ADB networks. Also, we are working with Jeff because they have a very good global network for knowledge sharing to more than 50 cities across 17 countries. And we are also happy to disseminate JFPL component across the world. So I should stop here. And that's all for my presentation. And the project has just started. And we should work very hard with our counterpart for ensuring a quality operation and maintenance. As I said, I'm very sad to hear that the city is now experiencing, Chennai city is now experiencing the flood from the last weekend. And we are hoping that citizens will stay safe and determine ourselves, our team, to expedite our project implementation to keep the citizens safe from the flood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Akira, keeping the time and very informative presentation. Let's move into the next presenter, Dr. Mushtaq Memon, the Regional Coordinator for Resource Efficiency, United Nations Environment Program, Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. It's over to you, Dr. Mushtaq.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon. So let me quickly share my screen in the interest of time. Okay, so I will be briefly mentioning about the work in the Vietnam, but before that, let me put that in the perspective, as we have every year the progress on the SDGs, and we see that there's a lot of challenges still in Asia Pacific on almost all the goals. but most of the goals are directly or indirectly related with the water. So not only the goal 6, but also whether it's a water for health, water for food, water for social economy, sustainable consumption and production, life under water, life over the land, climate action, you name it. So water is everywhere, and that is where we have to really put that in perspective, that how we are progressing, whether we are regressing in some of the SDGs, and that's very important to look at that, and how we relate goal 6 to the all SDGs. And that's where comes to look at the water from different perspectives, like from the sustainable consumption and production point of view of the water, including its quality, including the circularity, including the resource augmentation, and so on. So basically, when we look at the Asia, and we see a lot of challenges in the water scarcity, and also the water impacts on the climate, including the mitigation from the wastewater treatments and so on, and also looking back on the adaptation and so forth, including whether it be the flooding or droughts and so on. So when we look on this urban water cycle, that how it is working, and where we can really make quite good interventions to improve the situation. And that's where we look on the different needs. So basically it's a demand and supply in urban centers, how you really match the demand and supply. So even sometimes the wastewater may not need really that much of treatment, and you can still be fulfilling some of the needs based on the requirements of that one. So that brings me to our project in Vietnam on what we call the water augmentation in sugar industry. So this is like an industry level rainwater harvesting, wastewater reuse. And that is one of the keys, that how you really bring that up scale, because we have seen quite a lot of good work on the rainwater harvesting at a household level, but this was more of the industry, and that's also the water intensive industry of sugar industry and so on. So this industry is located, you can see where it's like a sort of a nose, if you look on the map of Vietnam, and our partner, Vietnam Cleaner Production Center, they're based in Hanoi. So we work on this. So first is to really looking on the rainwater harvesting, that how we can, because in that sugar industry have a very huge roofs and also the ground. So how you catchment area, so how you really ensure that all the rainwater is arrested, like taking a Singapore's example, that they have a marina, like they try to catch all the rainwater that falls in Singapore. So you look in this industry premises and say not a single drop will get out. And that is the promise you cut to the industrial level rainwater harvesting, and you try to also match the uses. So you may not need to really treat a lot of rainwater because there are horticulture needs, there are cleaning needs, there are cooling needs, and so on. So we designed the whole industry based on this rainwater harvesting, where to catch, where to arrest, where to store, and for different needs and so on. So that was a very important a lesson learned there. And then also we had a lot of wastewater coming from the different parts of the factory. So some even coming from the canteens, some coming from the washing, coming from the manufacturing processes, some are coming from the cooling, and it's a huge that's coming from the cooling, which is a gray water and so on. So again, how you really do the matchmaking for demand and supply where the need is, and so you reduce your energy needs and other needs or transportation needs of water to really make the demand and supply met. So now bringing that example to see how the challenging part is coming. With this pandemic, we realized, and also the ADB, thanks to the ADB, the reports, that there's a huge pressure on the water supply and wastewater because of the COVID, as hand washing, everything. So there are a lot of chemicals in the wastewater and so on. So how you really create the circularity of water to even support the water needs which changed during the pandemic, even the lockdown, so you're working from home and so on. So you really see that how this circularity, and sometimes within the building blocks, you make it as a factory example, and you recirculate the water within the building blocks. So for that, what can governments do? So we have to look on the legislative action, the policies on the water sector, and especially on the circularity or the augmentation of water, the pollution-free water, and so on. So you have to look on the proper legislation, as the legislation on water are everywhere, like even in the waste management, there's a legislation on water and so on. So you really bring those together and to understand that what legislations are there, how's the enforcement. Then the budgetary action. As we have seen, there's a lot of our budgets sometimes go in the care, suppose waterborne diseases. So a lot of a healthcare budget is to cure, but not to cure, like to reduce the incidence and precedence of the many of the diseases, waterborne diseases, by investing in water. So how you really balance the budget, that's it there. And last thing is the oversight and action. That is again very, very important, that how governments really can monitor and evaluate and put the things in perspective. So thank you very much for having me with you.
Thank you, Dr. Menon, much for your presentation. Because of time constraint, let's move into the next presenter, Dr. Ryan Dam, Delegated Representative Water Indonesia. It's over to you.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Laxman. Good morning, all participants. Welcome to this session, and good luck with your work and discussions in Glasgow. I would like to take you back to Indonesia, where we are working in a collaborative way on a very challenging urban resilience and water management projects. I hope you have me on screen now. In this presentation, I would briefly highlight the work we are doing together with our Indonesian friends on the urban water management in the city of Semarang on Java. And the main message of this short presentation is that we are transforming our approach from a kind of single issue civil engineering urban water management to a much more comprehensive approach to developing multiple solutions to bring more resilience to the city. And the city of Semarang is about 1.2 million people and faces quite a number of water challenges. As a coastal city, it faces flooding from the sea, flooding from the hinterland, from the rivers, and multiple water-related challenges, also like land subsidence. So in our collaboration with our Indonesian colleagues and friends, we are trying to resolve some of these problems. First of all, I would like to mention the very interesting recent work in the Water as Leverage project that has been completed in Semarang, and which brought to the overall way of working a new approach, a new vision to bring resilience to the city from urban planning, urban spatial planning, urban development perspective, and also looking very innovatively to the existing water management challenges. So it's not that easy to implement all the ambitions from the design teams and from the architectural and spatial planning specialists, but there is certainly a need and also an opportunity to bring these elements into the overall urban water management discussion. So apart from that, we are conducting several projects that face and deal with multiple water-related issues in the city, like land subsidence. I will show a little bit more about that. Water supply and sanitation and wastewater management, institutional context and governance, in particular related to polders or coastal land that is below sea level. and ultimately also working on the integrated review of the drainage master plan for the city. We are even looking into the old city center, which is a tourist location of major importance and faces quite unique challenges in terms of water management. So this is one of the projects that was recently implemented and forms part of this much more comprehensive approach to look to the city and to look to its water problems in a comprehensive manner, and to try to develop solutions that do not just touch upon the water infrastructure and the water issues, but also the overall resilience of the city. So in the screen, you see a schematic overview of the urban drainage pattern with channels and rivers. And on the right-hand side, you see some of the topics that we have been addressing, leading ultimately to development of resilient and innovative infrastructure that will hopefully be built in the near future. As I already mentioned, Semarang City is a coastal city, and it is built on soft marine and alluvial sediments, and therefore faces quite severe land subsidence. First of all, we need to understand the problem of land subsidence, and subsequently we need to develop solutions that effectively address both the causes of land subsidence in a mitigation kind of way, but also look for solutions in an adaptation kind of way. And in our collaboration with the authorities of the city, we are exactly doing that, looking to replacing groundwater-based water supply to a different kind of water supply, and also looking to other preventive measures that will mitigate the impact of land subsidence. This year, the city experienced quite severe flooding, and in this final slide, I would like to show that we are also using social media as a source of very interesting information on the processes of flooding, where exactly the flooding takes place, at which moments in a 2 to 3 day cycle we saw the flooding developing, and how severe it was. And this proves to be a very innovative and very effective way to very quickly collect data on the nature of the flood, the causes of the flooding, and of course the impact of the flooding as it is experienced by the citizens in Semarang. We use data mining of all kinds of social media platforms, Twitter, etc., and it contributes very much to our overall understanding of the challenges that we are working on. So overall, we are involved in a number of different projects, and together, these interventions, working in partnership with
Dr. Dan, is it possible to conclude?
Yes, I will conclude. I will just show one short movie of our friends working in Semarang. It is only 30 seconds. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid that maybe we'll have to move into the next presenter. Okay, because we have very short time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's move into quickly to the next speaker, Dr. Priyani Amarasinghe, Emeritus Scientist, Institute of Water Management and Water Management Institute. It's over to you, Dr. Amarasinghe.
Thank you very much, Lakshman. Thank you very much to the organizers. I'm delighted to be here today, connected virtually. Good afternoon from Sri Lanka. Let me share my screen. Now, my topic is Colombo as a wetland capital city, move towards resilience. Now, Colombo is a city built around wetlands, a huge network of canals, open water bodies, marshes, woodland areas. And this is, very neatly connected. The capital city, Colombo, is also the financial and commercial hub. It has nearly 22 million population as at 2021. Now, in 2018, the Colombo city was awarded Ramsar City accreditation. Now, this was based on 6 criteria. And the theme was wise use of urban, peri-urban wetlands. Now, at the same time, in 2014, a project was started in Colombo, the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project. This was mainly to look into the urban flood risk management. Now, much of the information that was collected went into the accreditation process. Now, this speaks to the Sustainable Development Goal 11, where cities are to be inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And also participatory planning and monitoring is encouraged. Now, if you look at the wetland types, there are a number of wetland types within the Colombo catchment. 85% freshwater. And the wetland types could be woodlands, marginal vegetation, floating vegetations, anona woodlands. This is the invasive species, active paddy, abandoned paddy, and also open water bodies. So there are many ecosystem services provided. Nearly 40 has been identified during a study, but flood risk mitigation stands out. And this was the project about. The population in the Colombo metropolitan region is about 5.6 million. The hydrological catchment area is about 227 square kilometers. Now, this is the area that has been demarcated in red. The wetland cover is about 20 square kilometers. You can see the green areas marked in this map. There are 6 municipal councils and urban local bodies managing the administration. Now, apart from that, there are central government organizations that have a key stake in managing wetlands. And these would be the Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation, Urban Development Authority, Irrigation Department, Central Environment Authority, Department of Wildlife Conservation, and Biodiversity Secretariat. Now, the problem for Colombo was that the wetlands were gradually degraded, and there was immense flooding in the city. Wetland degradation was assessed at 1.2% per year because of rapid development. Colombo's local level annual average rainfall was increasing, and the flood-related losses in 2010, this was the floods that we experienced, was estimated to be US dollars 50 million. So this is where the stakeholders came together and thought of wetlands and natural infrastructure to be combined with grey infrastructure to manage the floodwaters. Now, this is a sort of a snapshot of floods in Colombo. It's in the Kalani River basin, so there's a lot of water coming down the river, especially when the upstream reservoirs filled up and they're spilling. The river itself, there's a lot of water. And because of human encroachments and settlements, the water
does not, get absorbed as it passes along. Then within Colombo itself, because of highly localized rains, there's inadequate outfall capacity and storage capacity. And also we have built up area has expanded, so there isn't enough drainage and there's poor maintenance, and this is why flooding occurs. And you will see that three main government organizations have a stake in managing these floods. So this is the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project. So the main issue at hand was flooding, where 30% reduction in water holding capacity because of development and urbanization. We have come to the end of the project, so we see a lot of action being taken, funded by the World Bank and also the Sri Lankan government at a cost of 223 million. Now, this was the action taken. It's a wetland complex. They combine green and gray infrastructure into looking at canal widening and protection, flooding parks, pumping stations, wetland parks for awareness raising and wetland conservation and wise use programs. Then point source pollution, points identified and corrective actions taken. So these are the major activities that were undertaken. Looking at hydrologic modeling as well as economic modeling, the robust modeling system that was used, they looked at how the water, the flood waters can be distributed at different points. There are 10 that they have identified, and the percentage of water that can be drained out of Colombo is given in the pie chart. And in this pie chart, you see that the wetlands can absorb nearly 40% of flood waters. So this is why the whole rehabilitation process towards resilience was figured out during the project activities. Now, this is my last slide. Why we say a move towards resilience, because a lot of things have come into place. We have a National Wetland Steering Committee. We have a Ramsar focal point, which is the Department of Wildlife and Conservation. We have a wetland management strategy, which looks at how wetlands should be managed, and the different stakeholders can have a look at it and see what needs to be done. 2018, the cabinet decision was taken to stop land reclamation and destruction of wetlands. In 2018, we won the Ramsar City accreditation, and this, in fact, is the first capital city to have received this certification. It lasts for 6 years, and it will be re-evaluated, and this is the challenge that we have to meet. The Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation has a wetland division established, which looks at
wind up.
Yes. Yeah. UDA has incorporated wetlands as a land use category towards conservation and wise use. Special wetland parks have been established for awareness. Wetland zoning guidelines have been established. And 2019, all wetland areas within the Colombo area have been declared as sanctuaries. In the National Environment Act, number 47 of 1980, a special section has been included for wetlands and wise use. And finally, research and funding from many organizations like the UN organizations and other donors and research organizations are looking at resilience of these wetlands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amarasinghe. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I think we had today the presentation starting from safe drinking water to integrated urban flood management, and then moving to the resource augmentation through wastewater and rainwater harvesting, and then going into the urban management, the resilient cities, and more on the wetland aspect of the resilience, how we can move forward. So with that, I would like to introduce, actually we have planned for 3 videos to be presented, but unfortunately, because of the time, that we'll have to limit to one. The video that going to be presented here today is from the Wetland International. It is more of the accelerating adaptation through building with nature, which is basically the experience from Indonesia. And the main idea is the flooding, how the flooding affect the loss of income, and also people have been evacuated, and then the small experiments on the large into a large scale initiatives along 20 kilometer eroding coastline. So the video basically demonstrates capacity building, knowledge in exchange, and also enabling building with nature into policy and planning. So it's over to Simon to run the video now. It's over to you.
Razi, can you run the video? Thanks.
Orang tua kami telah mengingatkan bahwa kami harus melindungi hutan mangrove dan tidak menebanginya untuk dijadikan tambak. Sekarang dengan hilangnya sebagian besar mangrove, laut telah menyapu tanggul-tanggul tambak kami hingga masuk ke daratan sekitar 1 mil. Dan desa telah kehilangan 25 baris tambaknya.
In the Demak district of North Java, Indonesia, the coastline is severely eroding as a result of sediment disturbance. Mangroves that protected the shore and held the sediment have been cut down and replaced by aquaculture ponds. To make matters worse, the land is sinking due to groundwater extraction by cities and industry. This combination of factors has left the coastline and communities exposed to the daily tides, as well as extreme weather events that are occurring more frequently due to climate change. In efforts to quell the tide, concrete sea walls were placed, but these collapsed in the soft mud and blocked the sediment transport inland. Efforts to plant mangroves also failed because the water had become too deep. A new approach was needed to restore coastal safety and revitalize the local economy. A consortium of local communities, scientists, engineers, NGOs, and the government was brought together, led by Wetlands International, EcoShape, and the Indonesian government. Together, they designed an integrated solution to restore the mighty mangrove belt that once protected the land. To enhance coastal safety, permeable structures were constructed by contractors and villagers in the most severely eroding areas to trap sediment and create the right conditions for mangrove recovery. Today, communities own, monitor, and maintain the structures. In other places along the coast, unproductive aquaculture ponds were converted back into mangrove forests. In addition, local farmers received training in sustainable aquaculture practices, which boosted productivity and tripled their income. These economic benefits enabled farmers to give up part of their aquaculture ponds to make space for mangroves.
Sebelumnya, sebelum mengikuti SL, saya menggunakan bahan-bahan kimia. Tapi hasilnya di situ kurang memuaskan karena sering terjadi yaitu kematian udang. Adanya SL di sini, saya rubah sistemnya, yaitu memakai yang ramah lingkungan, yaitu komposisasi atau penggunaan mol. Sekarang saya mulai yaitu berbagi ilmu, berbagi pengalaman saya dan berbagi keberhasilan saya kepada kelompok-kelompok di pinggiran pantai seluruh Kabupaten Demak. Saya tunjukkan pada teman-teman, ayo bangkit, ayo jangan malas, buktinya ada.
In 5 years, this project has grown into a landscape-scale initiative along 20 kilometers of eroding coastline in central Java. The use of permeable structures to bring back mangroves has been replicated by the Indonesian government in 13 districts. Sadly, the coastal restoration efforts in Demak are severely challenged by the sinking of the land, caused by unsustainable pumping of groundwater by cities and industries nearby. Young recovering mangroves are being washed away and ponds suffer from flooding. To facilitate a solution to this land subsidence, the project partners initiated water dialogues at national and provincial level and worked with communities to help them express their needs.
Ini adalah rumah kami. Insya Allah kami berencana tetap tinggal di sini. Saya berharap proyek ini dapat menyelamatkan dan mengembalikan hutan mangrove kami. Saya merasakan ada harapan baru.
What we have been pioneering in Indonesia can be replicated elsewhere. There is no standard blueprint, and upscaling has to recognize that. Building with nature is going to be the answer to coastal protection in many places.
Solutions like this that engineer with nature can help protect not only coastlines, but also rivers, cities, and beaches. We are sharing our knowledge, training the engineers of the future, and removing policy barriers for building with nature instead of fighting against it. Join us in upscaling this approach in Indonesia, Asia, and beyond.
That was great. Lakshman, thank you very much for hosting that middle section and for bringing us back almost to time. And I think that was very timely, was to have that intervention from Wetlands International. And it takes us very nicely into our final segment today. And just to remind colleagues, this segment, we're going to have an intervention from Ritesh Kumar, and I'll introduce Ritesh in a minute. Then I'm going to ask Ravi to share some ideas of key messages that have come out of today. And then I'll pass over to the illustrator. And we need to get through that in about 25 minutes. So Ritesh Kumar, Director of Wetlands International, South Asia. I think you've been there over 2 decades, restoring wetlands, resources and biodiversity across South Asia, and undertaken integrated management planning of several wetlands and coordinated multiple projects, ecosystem services, evaluation, water management, sustainable livelihoods, and the list goes on. But Ritesh, can I pass over to you for more of a forward look? Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Simon. I think much has already been said. But what if I were to put some closing words, I would say that the model of city planning and especially water, which was largely dependent on getting water from as far as possible and getting water out as quickly as possible, is completely challenged. In the city where I'm based, Delhi, we are having rains now somewhere in November, which was unheard. And nature is telling us that, old hydrographs and 90% dependable flows, these instruments of planning are increasingly being questioned. So we need flexibility, and nature, and rightly so, provides us with this flexibility. I think COP26 perhaps would have at least one positive landmark, that nature-based solutions are being seen and recognized on the global agenda. There are commitments coming through. The science is also being recognized. So as Wetlands International, we are working with a team of engineers, ecologists, consortiums to put these things into practice. We just saw a video of our work in Indonesia under the framework umbrella of building with nature. But I would like to share that, the concept is out there, but it still takes something more to upscale and ensure replication. Nature-based solutions are inherently dynamic, multifunctional, and then they also need us to think, act, and interact differently, which is the softer side. When we started working with this building with nature concept 12 years ago, the first thing was to build a common communication language. As engineers, we are used to thinking about in quantitative terms. As an ecologist, yes, birds come in, but water levels move like this, but they cannot be outrightly communicated in the same language and evidences as two sectors use. So having a clear communication and co-designing an approach was a critical foundational step. And with 12 pilots done already through a team based out of Netherlands, people who hold expertise in several dimensions, EcoShape Consortium came into being, and then projects like Indonesia came into being. So we find there are 6 important enablers to upscale concepts like building with nature. The first is technology and systems knowledge. There is no straitjacket solution, even if we have shown you a very promising video in Indonesia. As the message goes out, every city, every place will need a different solution. The second thing is, this is all a multi-stakeholder approach. We need to understand different segments. Economists, ecologists, engineers all need to come together. It needs very close management and monitoring. Any complex project of this nature requires this. And mostly institutional embedding is a must, because these cannot exist as standalone projects funded with foreign aid money. It has to be systematized into internal budgets, national projects, and with clear business case, so that governments feel that every dime that is being spent into these projects is giving them good conservation outcomes and development outcomes. And uncertainty will remain a fundamental challenge. With the sciences is out there, systems, even the new knowledge is telling us variabilities will require solutions to be very adaptive, and this also applies to building with nature solutions. So we are, as Wetlands International, working towards developing a regional platform in Asia with projects around Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, India, and trying to build a host of actors to share, co-learn, and innovate with us. So this is a journey. I think that was all that I wanted to share. Simon, over to you now.
Ritesh, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us that perspective and a very nice regional view. And I think positive, action is happening and we need to expand that. So I very much appreciate that intervention. Thanks a lot. So what I'd like to do now is turn to Ravi Narayan. Sorry, Ravi, I can never quite get your surname right. Ravi is the chair of the Governing Council of the Asia Pacific Water Forum. He's held that position for 15 years. And at the core of the Asia Pacific Water Forum is networking and engagement, and really seeks to encourage leadership in water at the highest political level, promoting sharing of knowledge across regions, encouraging partnerships, government, knowledge institutions, financial entities, civil society, citizens, and sectors. So Ravi, could I just come to you and just share what were the key messages that you've heard in the last hour and a half? That would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So it's been a very rich presentation, lots of detail and so on, but I'd like to just mention 3 things that struck me as being significant. One is the issue of materiality. That is, whenever a solution was being developed, we need to look at what is the scale of that solution in relation to the total problem, right? So materiality. So, how many people are affected, how long has the problem been there, etc., etc. The second is, this cannot be done without local involvement and local community action, which is important. But we need to have some idea of what is that local action. Is it community development and resilience building through paraprofessionals or through the induction of super professionals? The super professionals versus paraprofessionals, not versus, and paraprofessional. What's the mix? The third thing is, what are the steps for scaling up? I mean, some of the case studies had them, but some didn't. It would be very useful to see what are the steps for scaling up. The second point that I wish to make is that, so far we've been looking at adaptation, that climate change is a given, things are going to go bad, how do we adapt? That's okay. But do we have a role in mitigation? We have to think about it. For instance, we've been told that waste treatment creates methane, and that's adding to the load of climate adaptation, climate change. So, is there something that we need to do? And finally, the issue of partnerships. Now, we've had some very good examples of partnerships across. So, SDG 17 is a gateway to all the SDGs. So, the idea of partnerships, collaboration, and cooperation, supremely important. Those are the three lessons that I've got. Thank you, Simon. Thank you,
Ravi.
Simon.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Sorry, I'm trying to multiple task here. Can I, Priyani, your video's come on again. Okay, so that's given us, I think we've got about 10 minutes. So let me ask Pushpin and our illustrators if they would like to share with us what they've seen and what they've taken from today's session. And just whilst they're starting, just to remind you, we've had an illustration, or will have an illustration for each day that we will send through to the COP, through to the Water Pavilion, and we would encourage colleagues to share this, digest it, and indeed any feedback. So I'm not sure, Ali, are you going to present? Ali, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh, yes, sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can, yes, thanks.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much for everyone's presentation. As always, we have learned a lot on how cities and infrastructures are also very important in water management. Yeah, as summarized here, there are just challenges to the development of how rapid urbanization does contribute significantly to climate change, since cities take up a large percent of world energy and really produce most of the green gas. So it results in high temperature, reduced precipitation, and increased rain and drought. So really having this lack of urban planning, it might be a problem, and inadequate flood protections in our infrastructure, as well as low people's awareness and capacities towards this. And it's really nice to be hearing that there are actions being made. So yeah, planning for water infrastructures that can resist and withstand decades of evolving risk and demands, and saying that this is a time for action in how we can change systems radically so that we can accommodate all those demands in uncertain times. So focusing on urban planning that adequately considers population growth and urbanization, technology advancements that we can use, economic growth, land use planning, as well as managing competitions between sectors are all very important. And yes, addressing these things like need for identifying critical areas of water scarcity and prioritizing domestic supplies of water, ensuring that everyone's human rights and water sanitations are met. So yeah, as well as in the discussion, there was an emphasis in building with nature and having funds to support climate financing to member countries. And there is a need for access to drinking water and sanitation, disaster risk reduction, water reduction, and water reuse, and incorporating natural infrastructures to our cities. So yeah, thank you for all that you have shared, and back to you, Simon.
Ali, thanks a lot. Colleagues, thanks a lot. Okay, let me just share with you. What I'm going to do now is just share some of my own quick thoughts with everyone. Then I'm going to do thanks, and we're going to go out with the 2 remaining videos. So just some key points that I took away from today, which builds on what we've heard over the last 2 days. And I don't think I've heard this emphasized as much previously, although it reflects my own thinking, so maybe I'm attuned to it, is this ever-increasing idea of we're dealing with complex systems. And to deal with them, we need to be holistic in our approaches. We need to also think in systems. We can no longer think about individual sites or individual issues. All the issues are linked, and sites don't exist in isolation. They're part of a wider system. And until we take that and scale that out, we won't move to big solutions. And I think those systems, what we heard of today in a number of presentations and interventions, was the idea of blending both built infrastructure with natural infrastructure. And at the same time, thinking about capacity strengthening, thinking about inclusivity. So again, what can a person on the street do versus a person in a field? And again, that systems thinking of what is the relationship between our cities with their inlands and indeed with their coastal areas. And for that, we need to build up resilience. And this idea of joined up governance and inclusivity, and technology and systems that are customized for the needs of that set of problems, that geography. And how do we incorporate uncertainty? We have to accept that there is uncertainty, and maybe in there we need this idea of platforms that we can share and talk about it. But please don't go away from this thinking there's still so much uncertainty we can't act. We do need to act. And this idea of a radical and more rapid approach came out again. And just picking up on a couple of Ravi's points, this idea of how do we scale up? How do we get into this circular economy? How do we work better together? So that's it from me in terms of the technical input. And really, I'd just like to finish very briefly with some thanks. I need to thank you as participants. I need to thank Jennifer and the Water Pavilion. I need to thank colleagues in the UN, particularly Hannah Singer. Wagisha, who you haven't seen, is hiding, but has helped us all incredibly. And then in the ADB, Nita Pokro, Alicia Giordano, and Pia Comar-Rees, sorry, Pia. Here, again, somebody else you haven't seen, but has been helping. Nathan is Rosali Lin, and he's been keeping things going. And so finally, thanks to speakers, moderators, and just finally, please endeavor to do something different as a result of what you've heard, what you've learned, or what's stuck a chord with you. And good luck, Glasgow. And that's it. And we're going to go out with the 2 remaining videos that we didn't show earlier. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Laviani Hinnavaru is an island with a population of approximately 4,863 people and 750 homes, located in North Malay Atoll of the Maldives. In early days, because of the contaminated groundwater, the island communities had to depend on harvesting rainwater. Large containers, buckets, and other sorts of equipment were used to collect as much rainwater as they could, but this was never enough. The people regularly faced water shortages in the dry season when there was not enough rain. These challenging times came to an end with the implementation of an integrated water management system that was developed by UN OPS together with Ministry of Environment and Energy with the financial support of USAID.
Mihar hama gega kibeging hama fembenu kollang balibe kuriga miskit dara bugas fengenas ken nunama kommes fen ragal hisab ga huri gea kun fen kole genes ken fembenu kuranjene parapata fase he mihar o fen ama benu barake balibe miro fenge balibe
This water supply system consists of a mixture of treated seawater and rainwater for maximum reliability, resulting in continuous supply of fresh water. The water desalination system pumps seawater through bore wells and takes it through a treatment process. After the desalination process, rejected water is flushed to the sea through a dedicated outflow line.
We are bid from the plant ki me 40 ton the plant we are dua service ka date tere we are me the plant ho gade ani 80 ton the me wagotu inno rayitna beenum bawara barabar gaatre feng edumune kade.
After the implementation of the water project here in Hinnavaru, we have got a new program that ban single-use plastics here in the school. So our students bring their own bottles, and then we have installed water dispenser here in our the block. Our students have started using this tap water, and they have built more confidence in using this water.
මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් ගේ අමලී මසක්ක 2015 ජනවාරි गा ෆෙරි 2017 ජූන් गा නිවනි ගේගේ ෆෙන්දු කොෆ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් ගේ තරම් ෆයර් සිස්ටම් එක විශ්වානි කැම් කරේ
රෂුගේ හතර සරහද එක්ක මීනි ෆෙන් අල්ෆානි නිව හතර පොයින්ට් ගාම් කරේ පර
මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් ගේ තරම් ගාම් කරේ ෆෙනුගේ නිසාම Fas ahar duha behenuwa spare parts USA faratum Fenega Corporation pani hawal kore.
Another initiation under this project was supplying fresh water for the fishing vessels. For this, the vessel would coordinate with the island council to arrange the extraction of the fresh water through the water release inside at the dock. These fishing vessels collect as much fresh water in containers and water storage tanks for as much as they need for the fishing trip, which generates revenue to Fenaka.
Test kurmataka regional laboratories regional ka riyasar hedibis feng test kurevarge laboratory gam kurpange hami laboratory ka masaka kurmataka mi laboratory technician bismani tamrin kurefa enage belmudro by test to sila edemu midani.
Roofs of government buildings and some community houses are prepared to harvest the rainwater to the tanks around the island. Each tanks hold about 2,000 tons of rainwater storage. In addition to this, tree plantation along the green belt was also another component which was carried out under this project.
This project to nimige media USA ಗೆ ದೀದ ಯಹಿಯ ಯುನಪ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಪೂರ ಮಸಕ್ಕತುಂ ಕ ಫಾಹಕ USA ಗೆ ವೆರಿನ ಹಾಸಕ ಅಮೆರಿಕಾ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಯುನಪ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ವೆರಿನ ಇನ್ನವರ್ಗೆ ಲೌಗತ ರೈತು ನಮಗ ಸುಕುರು ಅದಾ ಕುರ ಅದಿ ಮಿ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಸಕ್ಕ ಫೆಸಿಗೆ ನಿಮುಮಾ ಹಮವಸ್ ಅದುಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಸಕ್ಕ ಹಿಂಗಮ್ ದಾ ವರ ಗಾತು ಬಲ್ಲ ದಿಮಾವಾ ದೈತಕ ಹಲ್ಲು ಕುರುಮುಗ ಎಹಿತಿರ ದೇವಾಕಾವಾ ಕಂ ಫಾಹಕ ಅದುಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಗೆ ಮಿಹಾ ವೆರಿನ ವರ ಕೊಡ ಇನ್ನವರ್ಗೆ ಲೌಗತ ರೈತು ನಮಗ ಸುಕುರು ಅದಾ ಕುರ.
Razi, can you start the last video? Colleagues, I wish you well. It's likely that the video will cut off as we go through this last video if Razi can find the link. Otherwise, like I say, wish you well. Goodbye.